Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gene's Reviews. Reviews from a regular dude, where I do trailer reactions, I react to YouTube videos, I review YouTube channels. Occasionally, I'll review a movie, but really, I just do whatever the hell I want. Happy Halloween, everybody. Here's a short story for you called My Night Terrors Are Real. Since childhood, I've had to deal with the real entities who come stalking during my frequent night terrors. It was so annoying and disappointing when the elders in my family tried to tell me that they were just nightmares. I felt that they were keeping secrets from me, palming them off as ghost stories or an overactive imagination. Some of the visitations included people, strange creatures, and even aliens. Most of them were terrifying and evil. By the time I was 10 years old, I'd learned how to leave my body in an attempt to try and escape their attacks. I'd hover over the bed, looking down on my body, frozen in terror with my eyes wide open, straining to snap out of it. Once I hit my teens, I realized I was leaving my body too vulnerable to possession by the various evil entities. One night when I was 17, I was fighting for my body as the spirit of a nasty creature hovered over the bed. At first, I felt the familiar tingling up and down my spine as sleep paralysis kicked in, followed by the strange visions. I could see an ocean of swarming bodies melding into infinity with the image of a reptilian monster coming closer. I saw that it was the ghost of a shape-shifting creature hovering over me and waving its hand over my face furiously. I knew that the creature wanted to take over my body. I felt my muscles lock as my eyes opened up to see the green, ghostly monster concentrating on ripping my soul out. The fear of seeing such a beast, including the fluids running through its ethereal body, made me zoom into space. As soon as I got out of my body, I realized that my mortal life was in danger, so I quickly flew back into the room. Hovering over the bed, I saw that evil spirit. Wasn't aware that I'd left my body as it continued to wave its hand. I saw my inert and wide-eyed body as the monster hunched over me, increasing the speed of his waving. At a loss as to what I could do, I called on my higher self to help, even though I didn't know exactly what that meant. As soon as I thought that, a bright orange light penetrated the room, which distracted the monstrous spirit. I saw it slowly turn and growl at my higher spirit, which was a large ball of orange light floating next to me. What frightened me more was that the monster then turned to look at me, hovering over my still frozen body. I saw the entirety of his reptilian soul like a shell of luminescent green light, transparent like a ghost and deadly. Ghost stories don't hold a candle to the reality of night terrors. I heard an unearthly howl as it turned back to my body and tried to take possession, while the orange light buzzed. It shot out a beam of orange light like a saber or a bolt of lightning, penetrating the ghostly shell of the monster. The orange lightning splintered through the shell, making the monster roar in agony as it started to dissolve. I then heard a voice command me telepathically, "Go back to your body and don't leave again without me." Not having to be told twice, I zoomed back and blinked frantically as I watched the strange war raging above me. I could see my higher self as a yellow angel shooting out beams of energy which continued to penetrate the ghost. When I asked, "What is it?" I heard my higher self answer a demonic shapeshifter from another dimension. With one more blast of light, the monster yelped and obliterated into a billion pieces, leaving a green mist behind. Finally, I was able to unlock my muscles and sit up. I saw the mist dissipate and the golden light slowly ebb away. I called out as I cried, "Thank you." Even though there were no more words, I was bathed in warmth and love. That was only one of many experiences I've had with night terrors, which continue to plague me to this day. It's hard to believe terrifying stories where ghosts and monsters attack the innocent. But once you experience it yourself, the whole world changes forever. Okay, this next one, I don't believe has a title, so I'm going to call it Mother. When my sister Betsy and I were kids, our family lived for a while in a charming old farmhouse. We loved exploring its dusty corners and climbing up the apple tree in the backyard. But our favorite thing was the ghost. We called her Mother because she seemed so kind and nurturing. Some mornings, Betsy and I would wake up, and on each of our nightstands, we'd find a cup that hadn't been there the night before. Mother had left them. Worried that we'd get thirsty during the night, she just wanted to take care of us. Among the house's original furnishings was an antique wooden chair, which we kept against the back wall of the living room. Whenever we were preoccupied watching TV or playing a game, Mother would inch that chair forward across the room toward us. Sometimes she'd manage to move it all the way to the center of the room. We always felt sad putting it back against the wall. Mother just wanted to be near us. Years later, long after we'd moved out, I found an old newspaper article about the farmhouse's original occupant, a widow. She'd murdered her 2 children by giving them each a cup of poisoned milk before bed. Then she'd hanged herself. The article included a photo of the farmhouse's living room, with the woman's body hanging from a beam. Beneath her, knocked over, was that old wooden chair, placed exactly in the center of the room. The Neighbor's Dark Secrets. It's exciting when new neighbors move into the neighborhood. Adults and kids alike look forward to making new friends. When I was 17, it was the beginning of spring when a family of 3 moved in next door. The mother was heavily pregnant. The father worked night shift, and their 16-year-old daughter was terribly shy. My mother took over a plate of cookies to welcome them, but she returned with a strange look on her face. When I asked her what they were like, she simply replied, "Odd." This intrigued me, so I pressed her for more. All she would say was they seemed suspicious, didn't invite her into the house, and didn't want the cookies. It was only a few weeks later when my mother looked out the window and said she must have had the baby. I looked over her shoulder and saw the mother in the front yard, obviously not pregnant. But we never saw the baby. The daughter was homeschooled, so it took me a long time to say hello, which happened at her mailbox. I just happened to be in the garden, so I went over and introduced myself. She was terribly nervous, and she was shaking. "So, is it a baby brother or sister?" I asked innocently. She stared at me for a long time and did not answer. She then turned and went back inside. I realized that she hadn't told me her name and that she was scared witless. That night I was woken up by terrible screeching and crying, seemingly coming from a newborn baby. The wailing infant was disturbing, to say the least. My parents also woke up, and after several hours, my father decided to go over and see what was going on. When he returned, his face was ashen. It took him a while to tell us that the father said the baby died in childbirth. We sat at the dining table puzzling over this news, as the cries could still be heard, faintly and eerily. This went on for the next few days until one night, all three of them packed into the car and drove off. I was chatting with a friend online about the whole saga later that night, and he told me to go and investigate. We argued for ages until he finally talked me into it. Talking on my phone with me, I crept out and jumped the fence. Even though I was alone, I did feel safer with my friend on the phone with me. Surprisingly, the back door was unlocked. My heart was beating 100 miles a second. I turned on the flashlight, then made my way through the house. My skin was crawling as there was an air of unease, maybe even evil, as I went from room to room. Then, the crying started up. The hairs on the back of my neck pricked up, but I had to keep exploring. It seemed that the crying was coming from the basement. When I found the door, I just had to go in. As soon as I started to walk down the stairs, the wailing got much louder. I trembled in fear, but kept going. Once at the bottom of the stairs, I followed the crying to a large armoire. The noise was even louder now. I nearly fainted when I opened the door and saw a row of specimen jars filled with many embryos. My mind raced with questions laced with horror and dread. Some of them were tied up with string. I hadn't noticed that the crying had stopped, and the basement was deathly quiet until one of them moved. I screamed as I watched one fetus open its eyes, which seemed to trigger the crying again. I bolted in fear. My friend had gone offline as I raced back home. I never told anyone until they moved out a few weeks later. Ghost stories or not, this was most disturbing. Thank you, everybody. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hashtag Mean Gene, all that fun stuff. And if you like this video, tell all your friends, leave a comment down below. And if you didn't like it, then just shut up. And I will see you